are discussing values, ethics and corporate social responsibilities. In our last lecture, we were talking about values and various theorizing on values and various research studies related to those. Today, we continue with England and Lee, where we had closed last time. They have given various assertions and implications for studying the value systems of managers, and as we can see what are these assertions that they have given. The first is personal value system influence a manager's perceptions of situations and problems he faces. We are talking about values in organizations, and we are looking at values, ethics and corporate social responsibility, overall understanding of these. So, the first aspect is about the personal social personal values which are important. The second is the personal value system influences a person's decisions on solutions and those problems. Yes, we are trying to look at how personal value influences the managerial performance and behavior according to England and Lee. Personal value also influences the interpersonal relations among managers of an organization. Personal value system influences the perception of individual and organizational success and one's own achievements. Personal values set the limits for determination of what is what and what is not ethical behavior by managers. Yes, so the personal values are important. Also, personal values influence the extent to which a manager accepts or resists organizational pressures and goals. Some personal value systems may contribute to managerial performance and some may not, while some may be anti to the performance, to the achievement. So, while talking about organizational values, it also becomes imperative to look at ethics and the ethical practices in an organization. We have tried to see that how values and ethics come under the same caption. Yes, the type of values that we were talking about by various authors. And so, now we move on to work ethics. In fact, in one of my introductory lectures also I was talking to you about work ethics. Once again maybe some part of that I am discussing once again. Work ethics is a value that defines work as a virtue or virtuous and a source of dignity. Organizational ethics can strongly influence the evaluation of individual behavior and performance. Corporate codes of conduct, on the other hand, also represent an effort to specify behavior that the company does or does not sanction. So, when you join an organization, you have personal values and ethics and also the corporate code of conducts, and some kind of a matching has to be there in order to have the best performance. Yes, do you have personal values? All of you have personal values. Yes. So, we come to the engineering ethics. In fact, engineering ethics is nothing really very special about engineers, but since many authors have tried to explain certain specific areas of professional ethics as engineering ethics. I thought I will discuss that once again. So, engineering ethics are the professional ethics. However, there is a close linkage between personal ethics and professional ethics, and one's desire to be an ethical engineer is part of one's desire to be an ethical person. So, first you have to be an ethical person, only then you can become an ethical engineer or ethical professional or ethical manager. Yes, and we have seen that how the whole idea of values and ethics starts from the beginning of your life that we have discussed earlier, and then you come to the place of work. So, there is a very close linkage. The important meaning given to the principle of conduct governing an individual or a group, that is also a definition of ethics given by some authors, say Valenquesier. Personal ethics would refer to rules by which an individual lives his or her own personal life. Ethics are also concerned with moral judgments involved in moral decisions, the normative aspect of values we can say. So, there is a close linkage between values and ethics, and in fact, many authors would say that this is a type of value, or this is a normative aspect of values. Yes. We have also discussed Woodall and Van Stey earlier. They have defined, in fact, this may be sort of once again I am talking about the same authors, defined ethics as a consideration and application of framework, values and principles for developing moral awareness and guiding behavior and action. They state that an individual level ethics provide guidelines for the judgment and the conduct when the person faces moral dilemma. All of us face moral dilemma in our lives at times, and dilemma and certain choices. So, you have whether to do this or that, and you have to decide between the two, and sometimes these choices might result into certain moral dilemmas. Okay, and based on your personal ethics, perhaps you will then decide. So, while the moral a person's intuitive and perhaps unexamined stance may be, okay, which may be outside an individual or the conscious awareness. At times, we also find that at the same time, as the collective level of ethics, collective level when we say as a group, it is this represents the values enshrined in rules and the codes of practices guiding our behavior, and they then underline the professional and organizational life that we have. In other words, what I am trying to emphasize and perhaps repeat again and again, that values and ethics are important aspects of an organizational functioning and important aspects of managerial role. And so, whether you like it or no, we have to understand that how values actually make impact on our organizational functioning, because then in turn it has its impact on overall organizational performance. This we have discussed already in the beginning in some of the lectures. So, some of the Indian concepts of values also I would like to share here. and then maybe we will discuss about one of the studies that we have also conducted. Chakravarti, he has given a lot of researches and lot of ideas on values, and drawing on the Buddhist, Vedantic and yogic psychology and the Puranic literature. He has stated that the values are those deeply rooted in the structure of Indian culture and society. Now, we are trying to also look at the Indian culture, Indian organizations, Indian society, and how values become important in our organizations too. So, according to his studies, there are number of factors. Some of these I am listing here, and the first one is that the individual must be respected. There must be cooperation and trust. Jealousy is harmful for mental health, even though as we have seen in our discussion on equity theory in our chapter on motivation, that always there is a comparison process going on, and this comparison social comparison process going on also in organizations, and many a times there may be an outcome of that as jealousy, which is very harmful for the mental health of employees. Chitta Shuddhi and purification of mind is important. Top quality product and services. Work is worship. That work is worship. That we have to take as a sort of a philosophy or as a guiding principle for us. Only then we can really work very we can say successfully in organizations. So, containment of greed is yet another factor. Ethico-moral soundness, ethico-moral soundness, self-discipline and self-restraint, customer satisfaction, creativity. The inspiration from various scriptures, so inspirations to give, renunciation and detachment. So, that was the explanation given by Chakravarti in his writings, and that has implications for managers to become really successful and organizations to become very we can say effective if we practice that. Then Indian perspective of values for management, this also comes from many other writings and many other authors. So, let me put a few more views. According to Shiv Kumar and Rao, that was one of these studies, Manusmriti provides a total model for value based management for modern organizations. To practice value based management, it has to be integrated into a total framework consisting of some of the following aspects that I am going to discuss: service oriented corporate philosophy, value based leadership, ethics, corporate culture, general value guidelines, policies to achieve the organizational purpose, feedback on performance. So, drawing from Manusmriti, Kumar and Rao, they have given certain values which leaders should possess. Yes, and so these are some of these are the perseverance, gentleness, patience, good company, non-violent. Non-violent means non-violent attitude, yes. Self-control, feeling of universal good, equal-mindedness, modesty, okay, and then the sense of justice, sharpness of intellect, punctuality, and being liberal. Some of these they have listed in their writings. So, if we analyze each one of these values, we will see that if we want to really become successful and if a manager really wants to become effective manager, he should try to practice some of these values. So, they have discussed Manusmriti and they have also mentioned that Manusmriti also provides guidelines to develop an ethical culture for an organization. So, on the one hand they are talking about the ethical manager, the practices that perhaps he could use, and also the ethical organizations. The right kind of values should be inculcated by the employees or members of the organizations, and these values are the values of wisdom, loyalty, honesty, skill, bravery, righteousness, gratitude, perseverance, all these. And also the top management should appoint officials of high integrity, wisdom, skill and experience. Yes. So, that means there is an implication that when we are trying to do selection and recruitment, we are trying to do job design, we have to see some of these values as important factors, and because these have implications for their performance. Yes, so one could integrate that into the whole process of selection and recruitment at various levels. Yes. So, in another study which I have picked up is Sinha and Sinha, they have given varieties of values relevant to organizational effectiveness, and some of the important values they have given are the hierarchical perspective, power play, preference for personalized relationships, social networking through own or the dichotomy that you have, collectivistic orientation. Yes, in our last lecture we were discussing Hofstede's theory and we did talk about the collectivistic orientation in that chapter. Then Atreya gives an outlook for business in the 21st century to blend with the high prospects for growth on the one hand and serious concern about the impact of business on society and environment on the other. So, he has related these. Atreya states that to meet the expectations of the number of stakeholders, the organization should follow certain values from old Indian philosophical tradition to some of the perhaps the modern needs, and these values are the values for dharma, lok sangrah, kaushalam, vividita, jigyasa. These are coming from our traditional writings. And so, the four objectives in the following ethical orders are presented here, that is dharma comes first, then arth, then kam, then moksha, and yes, these are from our scriptures. And so, lok sanghas, this emphasizes on the individualistic values that we may have. And so, what an individual could perhaps do in terms of work and in terms of the gains, the goals. Yes, so these are important, and the four positions in this particular discussion have been given, and some of these are emphasized by these authors. Yes, you can see that what are the positions which are emphasized by Parthasarathi and by many others in the Indian literature, which I am showing you here as the caption. Yeah. So, maybe if you are interested, you can make short notes on these. If you are interested, you can talk about this. Yes. So, kaushalam is a value in which the efficacy, productivity and resource optimization is emphasized. Vivida is the it refers to innovation, stresses upon the importance to seeking more innovative solutions to meet the various social expectations. Jigyasa is the value for learning. And so, when we are talking about organizations in terms of the Indian traditional values, yes, these are coming from the Indian literature. So, organizations are not able to actually tap the creative potential of all the employees. This is because they fail to understand the importance of linking the well-being of employees and the well-being and survival of the organization. We had discussed that the individual and organizational values must actually match with each other in order to make a very successful company. In fact, many of you must have discussed and known about the theory by Argyris, who had talked about matching of the individual and organizational needs. Yes, one of the theories which we have also touched upon in the beginning of the course. So, we move on to Pine's explanation, who says that supporting ethically sound behavior should help managers strengthen the relationships and reputations of their companies, and will depend on these, the ethical behavior of their managers. And then Barrett has talked about the organizations should move from a culture which focuses on profits being the autocratic uncaring principle perhaps, to a culture and which is driven by trust, truth, privilege to equality, unity, etc. Yes. So, when we are yes, but you can see that there are many authors are talking about many things which are of the equal value. Sometimes the terminologies may be different, but the values are the same. What they are trying to communicate to us as the students of management. So, transformations can be done by self discovery, vision, mission and values. And most of the companies these days you will find are also talking about these concepts. Barrett has further emphasized that the fundamental change that occurs during corporate transformation is a shift in values and attitudes from what it is for us and what is best for the common good. We always look at what's good for me and what's good for others. So that's the way the dynamics of values perhaps will work. Now, we look at the Kitson and Campbell's point of view. They have given us important distinction between the corporate values and the espoused values in practice. Yes. So, let us see what do you understand by the espoused values. These are the values which are those in the company's mission statements and the conduct of and the codes of ethics in organizations. They state what the company stands for and describe the ethical perspective of these companies and the responsibilities for leading and directing these companies. They are intended to inform all the stakeholders, the employees, customers, competitors, suppliers and others, the sort of behavior and approach that is acceptable to the company. Yes. So, the effective policies and procedures should be formed in relation to the appointment, induction, training, remuneration, reward and all other employee related issues which make our managerial role more effective perhaps and the strategies for managing our organizations. Yes. So, the manager has to look into this. Short while ago I was talking to you about selecting a manager who has certain kinds of values. Yes. So, when we are talking about these values, we will again talk about another professor Hoffman and Goodpaster. They are talking about ethical values and clarity about these values which characterize morally we can say excellent organizations, a good communication system which aids the process of clarification and implementation, and they have space for disagreement and protest and minimum bureaucracy and control. See, there are so many things, and here we are also talking about we are understanding from Professors Hoffman and others that also certain aspects which have to be looked into, like the you should have the space for disagreement. That is also kind of a value that you may have in your organization, and also the minimum bureaucracy. In our topic on participative management, we have discussed that how we could reduce bureaucracy and improve participative management. Yes. So, Robert Haas, chairman and CEO of one of the companies, that is from the literature, yes, states that a company's values are what it stands for, what its people believe in, and what are crucial to its competitive success. Yes. So, what company believes in, what people believe in, and what will give you the competitive edge. Marin, while talking about re-engineering corporate values, he gives 8 steps. Re-engineering corporate values. We have talked about the re-engineering process sometimes in the earlier part of our course, and the steps that he has given are: get to know what is really going on. This is for the managers, the steps. Perhaps you could decide for yourself. Get to know what is really going on. Cut the chase, define success and gain alignment. Develop a mission statement. Develop a vision. Develop a value code or a code of ethics. Implement the program by communication, sharing appraisals and reviewing. Establish an organization watchdog. Ensure success. See, the success also you have to ensure through your values. If you decide, yes, we will get success, you are likely perhaps to get success. Yes. So, the institutionalization of values is a process through which components of a formal structure becomes widely accepted as both appropriate and necessary and serve to legitimate organizations. So, we have to actually institutionalize values. Yes, some values every employee brings with him or her, and then organization has certain values, and we have to institutionalize the corporate values, which is part of the corporate culture, to achieve success. So, value institutionalization in organization is an important issue, an aspect of understanding values and ethics in organizations. As a managerial, we can say managerial formula or a strategy. One of the most challenging issues today is the competitive organization is value institutionalization to achieve success. Gross and Sichman, they gave framework called HOME, 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 and which we can understand as history, openness, membership and exchange. That makes it home. And so, if we are following this formula, perhaps we can develop corporate culture and corporate value. And these can also be understood as developing a sense of history, openness, promoting a sense of membership, socialization of new members, all these. So, that means in an organization you have to design the organization in such a way that right from the first day when a member joins an organization, he is given certain exposure for the corporate environment and ethics, and of course, the history of that organization, and that is also very important, how it has been institutionalized and how you wish to institutionalize that, re-institutionalize that perhaps once again. So, Murphy has proposed 3 approaches to infusing ethical principles in an organization. Are you with me? We are talking about now values and ethics in organizations, and what various researchers and thinkers have given us, and what best we can perhaps take from that, and we could practice and make our corporate, our organization very successful. So, now we are moving on to Murphy, and his principles are that corporate credos that define and give direction to corporate values, ethics program where company wide efforts focus on ethical issues, ethical codes that provide specific guidance to employees in functional business areas, and these steps for the corporate ethics are that there is never a single ideal approach to corporate ethics. Murphy has further given us these guidelines that there is never a single ideal approach to corporate ethics. Top management has to be committed. Developing a structure is not sufficient by itself. Supporting processes should also be there. Yes, only structure developing is not enough. Supporting processes must be there. So, overall organization design has to look into that. Raising the ethical consciousness of an organization is not easy, and this requires time, money and resources, other resources. So, it has to be a very formal design in which we have to talk about the ethical aspects of an organization. We can't just leave it to itself, that will happen by itself. Manager has to design that very carefully. So, Pine he has also given some of these features for an effective integrity strategy. We have already discussed his some of the contributions earlier, and what he has said that the guiding values and the commitments make sense and are clearly communicated to all employees. So, communication becomes important. In some of these discussions, I take you back to have a recap of some of the earlier lectures that we have already had. Company leaders should be personally committed and credible. They should be willing to take action on the values they espouse, and the espoused values should be integrated into the normal channels of decision making within the organization's critical activities like allocation of resources, setting up of goals, communication of information, measurement of performance and promotion for the personnel. Some of the ideas which are coming from this thinker. So, the company's systems and structures should support and reinforce the values. Yes. So, we have discussed and what do we understand by reinforce, the word reinforce in this context. Yes. So, managers throughout the company they have the decision making skills, knowledge and competencies that are needed in making ethically sound decisions on a day to day basis. You should visualize a company and then look at each statement, perhaps you will understand each statement better. If you are already working in a company, perhaps it becomes much easier for you, but for the students, those who are just doing a management course, perhaps the first management course, you have to visualize, then it becomes easier for you to understand. So, the core values are referred to as the organization's essential and enduring tenets, and not to be confused with specific cultural or operating practices. These are there, but these are the enduring facets of your organization or enduring aspects. So, the corporate core values are those which attain importance by becoming shared values and the corporate purposes. Yes, we are discussing some of the corporate values, and Peter and Watterson, had you by any chance had an opportunity of looking at a book called In Search of Excellence? Yes, Peter Watterson, their book is available, and these days most of the students would like to look through this book. This is a very, very valuable book where they have conducted studies on successful companies, and based on that they have given their observations. So, if you have a chance, please go through this book also. In Search of Excellence, yes. So, they have McKinsey's, they have used McKinsey's 7S, the framework, okay, and aimed at focusing explicitly on not just the hardware, but the strategy and the structure, but also the software of the organization, style, system, staff, people, skills and the shared values as factors of organizational excellence. Yes. So, hardware is one side, that is also important, but what happens to successful companies? And so, they in another analysis they have found that superordinate goals, the basic beliefs and overriding values, how these are important. So, in Search of Excellence they have analyzed the successful companies and their values, and they found that all successful companies have certain core values. Yes. Now, we come to Miller, who gives us the aligned focus organization model, which he states is a roadmap to a high performing work culture. Miller. He is suggesting that external environment, mission, spirit and culture, banner, strategic template, workflow, systems and practices, leadership approach, success image and success matrices. These are important for successful organizations. So, ethics behavior is the manifestation of values professed by managers in the organization. Thus, for behavior to be more ethical, it is important that values be institutionalized in organizations. Finally, Nakano talks about certain steps for better institutionalization of ethics in organizations. Right now, I am talking about value institutionalization in organizations. Yes. So, he has talked about articulating ethics and values which the company professes, and they are trying to then put that very clearly to all members of their organization. So, these are important aspects. Also developing formal system like rules and procedures, ethical training programs, etc. These are important. Coordinating or changing the other structure and system in line with these values is also important. Encouraging for informal practices that enhance ethical behavior, creating that kind of a work culture. Demonstrating the top management's commitment, carrying out all the above mentioned steps in coherence with the culture. Culture, when we say, we are talking largely about the organizational culture, the culture which we have created for our corporate environment. Yeah. So, from here we move on to Joss and Thibaudex. They have looked into various ways of implicit and explicit factors by which organizations institutionalization of ethics is possible. They found that managers believe that ethics are good for the bottom line of the organization, and it is not necessary to compromise one's values to be competitive. So, we have to be competitive. At the same time, we have to institutionalize certain ethical values. We are not talking about these as the either or situation. We are saying that the competitive organization could be a highly ethical organization too. So, both have to go side by side. Another important finding is that the importance of ethical strategy for an organization is important, and the strategies consisting not only of structure like the ethical codes or ombudsman or the committees, but also the systems like performance evaluation, reward and promotion. Yes, these are the factors, you can say the soft factors, yeah, in the organization which will make the organization more effective. So, some sort of a matching has to be there. Joss, I think we have discussed these authors earlier also. They talk of ethics fit. Okay, we had talked about them in some other context. So, they are talking about the ethics fit, that is a fit between an organization's ethical strategy and its systems, structure and culture. So, here they are talking about that there has to be some kind of a fit perfect fit. So we just can't ignore one at the cost of the other. We have to go side by side. Yes. So that's the idea here. And another idea that we are taking up here is from McDonald, who uses the case of a large multinational company where strategies were being developed for effective communication and implementation of code of conduct through work. So, activating the role of senior management is important. Ethics audit help us in identifying factors or pressures which encourage unethical behavior. Whistleblowing should be encouraged. Should that be encouraged or no? That depends on the culture. And the formal system in an organization that includes those systems used to define, measure, reward, monitor employee performance, etc. So, we come to another author. In fact, earlier we were talking about the institutionalization of values, and now we are talking about the overall organizational functioning, the ethical organizations. So, Novran has suggested that the processes used to examine the organization's ethical effectiveness is an ethics audit. So, ethical audits are also done these days in organizations, and they stated organizational values, ethics strategies, ethics goals and objectives, ethics policies and procedures, ethics measurement system, rewards for ethical behavior, consistency between the above factors. So, these were some of the issues that we have to look into at the level of an organization. Gellerman emphasized that the code of ethics are necessary first steps on behalf of the organizations to minimize their risk. Thus, conditions that induce ethical behavior are, there are some conditions which induce unethical behavior, unethical behavior, and I am just giving you a few conditions according to these authors. These are unusually high reward for good performance, unusually severe punishment for poor performance, implicit sanctioning of explicit forbidding acts. Okay. These are some of the things. So, reward also we can't give too much, punishment also we can't give too much, and we have to design a system in which everything is optimum. And how do we go about it? Because this might result into certain other kinds of unexpected behavior. So, the corporate ethics programs may include training, formalized procedures for auditing and evaluating ethical behavior, disciplinary processes for failures to meet ethical expectations, dedications, and ethics telephone lines, formal ethics departments and officers, and cross-functional committees for settling and evaluating ethics policies and procedures. So, we do need, we have discussed in our chapter on training and development that we have got to prepare ourselves for the HRD activities, and ethics are some of the important issues on which we have to give training. So, the formal corporate ethic program includes the formal codes which articulate a firm's expectations regarding ethics, and the ethics committees which are charged with developing ethics policies, evaluating employee, company action, etc. And the ethics communication system also provides the companies to actually make a report of abuses and seek guidance. And ethics officers, they are in charge of coordinating policies and providing ethics education. So, ethics training program is aimed at helping the employees to recognize and respond to ethics issues and disciplinary processes for ethical actions. So, another important finding of this study was the highest level of commitment that were observed in those organizations with codes of ethics. And here, so we have seen that the values and ethics are important factor for any organizational functioning. Here, before we close, I will just give you an idea that we earlier I have mentioned to you about one of the research studies that we had conducted in our department, where we looked at that profit making and loss making organizations, do they differ in terms of value institutionalization, and we found that there is a significant difference. In another study, we had used the 3 guna theory to test these guna theories which relate to values, to test whether the managerial commitment relates to these guna theories, and we found that the managers, those who have the sattvic and we can say rajasic combination, or are in this combination group in between, they are much better in terms of commitment than the tamasic managers. So, with these last interesting, these are 2 research studies which we have conducted out here with managers, and we are comparing the public sector and private sector managers, and we find that values really make impact on the performance management of the individuals as well as the organizations. From here, now we move on to the third aspect of our course, that is on the corporate social responsibility. So, in next lecture we are going to discuss this.